study Islamophobia today, Islamophobia is child's play compared to what the African Americans face in this country. And this is not to downplay what we are facing, right? That what was faced in this country to actually give birth to Islam in here at this particular time is monumental struggles. And the challenge for us is to actually understand, study that period, document it systematically, engage it systematically, in order for us to hand our legacy to the next generation.
Dusay Muhammad then, after mentoring Marcus Garvey, and Garvey comes to Harlem and starts the UNIA, Dusay Muhammad goes to Detroit and starts a Muslim movement in Detroit that unifies all of the Muslims in Detroit under the leadership of an then African-American, Dusay Muhammad. He unifies the Iraqi Shia, the Iraqi Sunni, the Lebanese Shia, the Lebanese Sunnis. He unifies all of those communities with the African-American converts and a few Caucasian converts, and they start the Universal Muslim Association in Detroit in the 1920s. And then we get, out of Detroit, the emergence of the Nation of Islam. It becomes a very powerful movement, more powerful than all the others. And a lot of people have a part to play in that.
When the men, in the early part of the Nation of Islam, when the men were incarcerated in prison for fighting for their freedom of education and etc., and the FBI came in and raided our temples, my father, Carl Omar, shared the same cell with Elijah Muhammad in Malin, Michigan in the early 40s. And my mother, Maggie, who would always go to see him along with Sister Clara Muhammad, and I rode with them. Matter of fact, I remember the car, this photo of Buick and during the World War II.
When I came in the door, they were on the door like Tahita Mahmoud, who was Sister Fern, who was one of the first principals at the University of Islam schools. She would say, "Come on in, daughter," and it was almost like, "I want you to sit here so I can teach you. There are things that you missed, there are things that you need to know." And she taught me about Sister Clara Muhammad so vividly. I didn't meet Sister Clara, but when she got through, I could see Clara in my own mind and in my own heart, down to the way she dressed. She would tell me about the way her clothes fit, how she would bring herself downstairs, and how immaculate she was, and how loving she was for the students and the kids in the schools, the children in the schools, and how she would give out of her money, out of her charity for those children.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam acted as a mechanism, rewriting the genetic code to upgrade the organism, which at this time was the sleeping, mentally dead, so-called American Negro, to upgrade that organism so that they would not only survive, but would thrive in this stressful environment called the wilderness of North America. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad himself said, "I am not teaching you religion." Yeah, so you can stop that argument. He wasn't teaching Islam. I didn't say I was teaching Islam. My job was to clean you up and take you to the door. There's one that's coming after me that's going to teach you the religion.
We did it by truck. We did it by rail. We did it by plane. We covered the United States with fish. I'll tell you, and only this 3 million pounds coming in every month, and 36 million pounds coming in a year, we're talking about $50 million coming into this community every single year. That was a stimulus to everybody.
He made a distinct, clear difference between what he was teaching, that was social reform, and what is the religion of Islam. So let's see what he said. What is Islam? The author of Islam is Allah, God. We just cannot imagine God being the author of any other religion but one of peace. Since peace is the very nature of Allah, and peace he seeks for his people, and peace is the nature of the righteous, most surely Islam, and that's what he says now, al-Islam proper. Islam is the religion of peace. The followers are believers of Islam are over 1/2 billion people at that time in 1965.
Now it's well over 1.76 billion, whatever the number is. Islam has 5 beautiful fundamental principles of belief. The most essential of them all is the belief in one God. Allahu Akbar. Oh, whoa. That's not Imam Yahya. I'm reading Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Tawheed.
You ask, does the end result outweigh the means? And I cannot give you an answer to a question that is for Allah alone to determine. For what you are talking about is the souls of people whose peopleness was fired in the crucible of America's racism, fired in the muck and the mire of America's racism, and they still came out standing, wanting to know God, wanting to know how is God to be worshipped and what is the right religion. And I humbly submit that's not an academic exercise that can be measured by humans. Their worthiness is not for human approval. That is a determination for Allah alone, and surely Allah is the best of knowers and planners. Assalamu alaikum.
I'm Sister Fitra's daughter, Naima Muhammad, and on behalf of myself and everyone here today, I wanted to say thank you to her for providing this opportunity, for providing this space, and providing a platform for this history to be shared for those like myself to carry it on. So I hope she'll come up and say a few words.
So many people today have asked me what was the inspiration behind the work that had to be done to plan an event like this. So I thought I would share it. The last time I took a trip to Ghana, I went with someone I go with all the time, Samima, and we went to the slave dungeon, and this was not the first time that we had gone to the slave dungeons. We had been to the slave dungeons many times, but this particular time we spent the night up at the slave dungeon. That night when we went to bed, the water from the ocean was hitting the banks violently. The next morning when I woke up, I went out, the water had receded, the sun had risen. There were these minerals in the sand. It was an image of a tree trunk, and it had all these roots, and you could see walking what appeared to me as these muscular legs going back into the water. And I said to myself, these were my ancestors coming back from the waters onto the land that they had been taken from. And I know that I needed to come home and embrace the history that birthed us in this land called America. And we got here from the pain and suffering of our ancestors, and to deny the history because somebody said it's not right for us to connect with that. I couldn't handle that. I had this baby that I was responsible for. I had Coffee, who I was responsible for, and Precious, and every other young person that came behind me. I needed them to know who had saved my life at 16 years old. And we must accept our history like every other people have accepted their history. And we have a very rich history.